So welcome to those online. Thanks for joining us again for our What's New, What's Coming EPM webinar. I have to say April came around very, very quickly. We last did this webinar back in September, and we've had a busy time since. So 6 months goes really fast, and I think what you'll see when we go through the content, a lot's been happening in the Oracle platform space for EPM. So let's jump in. This is a little bit of a mirror image. We can see we've still got it not quite right with the swapped over of our positions. We'll put Rick in the middle for next time, Yogesh. So welcome to Yogesh, actually joining us from New Zealand today. So we are all three on different time zones. I'm here in Sydney and Rick in Western Australia. And together we cover Australia, New Zealand across the EPM and BI analytics space. So hopefully some of you have met at least some of us, and we're really happy to be here today to share what's been happening over the next 6 months and a sneak peek into what is to come. So today, great to have around 110 have registered. We now give the option to pick up the recording. So hello to those on the couch, maybe listening to us in double speed. That maybe I should slow down. Listening to parts of the webinar when it suits you. I know it is getting end of month. It's hard to fit a time in with our finance crew that's going to suit. But one of our joys is working across so many customers for all three of us. So welcome today. The content today will cover both from an administrative focus as well as end user. A lot to cover. So we will be sending out the recording and circulating the slides post the webinar. The agenda today, we do actually spend a lot of time on what's new. The Oracle EPM developers have been very busy over the last 6 months, and so there's a lot to tap into. But then Rick's going to give us some demonstrations across some out-of-the-box applications in sales planning and workforce planning. I'm sure a lot of you will be interested to see how that's come about. SmartView is not going anywhere. You'll see a roadmap for SmartView with lots and lots of continual investment and development in SmartView. So we'll share some exciting stuff from 2504 in that space. Our usual tips and tricks, and a bit of a sneak preview through some roadmap items that we can see on the horizon. As always, you can add your questions to the question box on the webinar. So if we don't get to all of the questions today, we will make sure we come back out to you with the answers to those. Thank you, Rick. Now, just a reminder, so a lot of our customers might have started their EPM journey with planning or PBCS, as it was called. And as we always talk about, the actual breadth of the Oracle suite continues to expand. Might be a little hard to see in the color scheme that we have there, but there are some applications or business processes that are only available in the EPM Enterprise licensing suite, and Rick's going to actually sort of go through that in a bit more detail later. EPM Standard still has all of the components that you would need to run the Office of the CFO, and we did go through EPM for Sustainability last webinar, which was really good. So they're continually adding to that Oracle suite. But underpinning the applications or the processes is what we call the EPM platform, and Yogesh will go through some new innovations in the platform. The platform is consistently getting stronger and giving the users that user interface and experience that makes it seamless across the Oracle suite. So things like Task Manager, bringing applications together so that end users don't need to know if they're in account recs or consolidation and close to run their end of month processes. They can simply just be in their environment, and Task Manager can help orchestrate that. But I think excitingly, And across all of the digital world, the move into AI. And when I say move into I guess we focus a little bit on Gen AI. It's the exciting thing, using ChatGPT to help you out with some wording on things, and we'll talk about that in narrative. But traditional AI has been around the platform for quite a long time. Um, predictive planning as an example. We demonstrated predictive cash forecasting last webinar, and so that just continues to get better. But insights is really the building block to get a lot out of the AI capability in the platform. So for those who are sitting on the fence with dipping your toe into the AI world with EPM, great place to start if you're a planning user to start with insights and then see where that takes you. So lots and lots of innovation happening in that space. I guess just to close that off, we do track what we sort of call historical additions. So we've added there from 2410, mark this spot on your calendar, the introduction of Gen AI into the Oracle space. And that list is certainly growing and expanding and enhancing as we go through, mostly in the platform space. For those, as I said, who missed it last time with the September webinar, reach out. You'll find us on YouTube, Influencing the World of EPM, but reach out if you'd like a copy to have another look at the PCF or predictive cash forecasting and ESG demonstrations from there. But we're going to talk about what's happened in the last 6 months. So let's jump in. In order for you to keep up to date with all of these, it seems like a lot sometimes, and I can tell you, in my experience, a month goes by really, really quickly, and there's another EPM update released to work through and find out what exciting things are actually there for testing. So we do go through that with all of our expert, I guess, leaders across the platform and the applications to send you a monthly update with a patching announcement. Lots of good links in there as well to get to the customer events and making sure you're keeping up to date with what is possible, but always, I guess, giving you that opportunity to reach out to us or your support contacts to get some more information. So, what is new? Let's hand over to Yogesh and talk about all of the innovations across the platform and planning. Thanks, Yogesh.
Thanks, Debbie. Let's have a look at some new features that have been released in past 6 to 8 months. Some are relatively major, while others are cosmetic but still significant. So this is not an exhaustive list that we'll go through, but we have picked certain key ones, especially the ones we have slowly started to incorporate in our new implementations. Let's start with platform-specific features and functions. Barring a few exceptions, most platform-specific components are available across multiple applications of EPM Enterprise ecosystem. Starting with Pipeline, which was released mid to late 2023, has seen series of enhancements since its inception, but with past 6 2 months in view, one significant addition is having different views like table, grid, and container in use cases where pipeline activities include multiple layers and long list of activities. Table view is quite handy to review, update, and analyze contents of the pipeline. One other addition includes save button instead of earlier autosave approach, which although sounds pretty small, definitely feels like a big addition, especially for people using it day in and day out. We can go to the next slide. EPM Automate, which predominantly is used for orchestration and automation, has some new commands. First is Compact Cube. Introduced to compact the outlines on ESO cubes. This helps maintain optimal cube outline sizes. The feature applies for planning out-of-box modules, custom and freeform applications. Second is run pipeline, which enables execution of pipelines directly from EPM Automate. This assists with orchestration and automation of pipelines. For customers using Google Workspace instead of Microsoft Office, things are eventually catching up in terms of connectivity to EPM Cloud to perform analysis and reporting. Focusing on user interface changes, starting this month, Oracle has started to reorganize and restructure reports card tab. As you might know, starting June, old financial reports support will be discontinued. So reach out to us if you have not already migrated to new reports. For new implementations in past year or two, we have already moved to building and deploying reports on the new platform. Currently, reports card contain like three subcards: reports, financial reports, and documents. In coming months, we'll see individual cards for reports and documents, and financial reports, as we said, will most likely disappear. This impacts most of the applications: planning, FCC, EPCM, and tax. If you can go to the next slide. And last but not the least, Oracle has phased out all non-secured HTTP URLs, and all connections will now be based off secured HTTP protocol. This means any unsecured HTTP will no longer be supported in establishing connections in data integration, task manager, narrative, and EDM. If you can go to the next slide. Of late, we've seen a bit of trend in terms of more granular global roles across EPM platforms and applications. These are generally aligned with enabling users and power users to perform specific activities without needing to have the service admin role. So won't be reading through each of these, but just there for your reference. Coming to what's new in EPM planning, we have seen a few updates in Oracle out-of-box modules. Out-of-box modules require something that we refer as content update scheduling, which effectively propagates the changes that happened in daily maintenance window to out-of-box planning modules. Earlier, there was around 3 hours wait time before this took place post the daily maintenance window. With the new updates, this can take place as early as 1 hour after the maintenance window, thereby reducing the system downtime. Additionally, it now comes with clear messaging for failures in content update process to assist with troubleshooting of all of the updates that happen to out-of-box modules. There are a few enhancements in workforce planning module with some new and enhanced business rules to improve the processing time. Freeform planning now supports IPM, predictive planning, and insights, which is quite a significant addition. Help center and documentation around freeform has been enhanced with a lot of new features. Coming to cash forecasting, which is relatively new business process, has seen number of improvements. Series of documentation, training, videos have been released to help assist with configuration and end user experience. User interface can now be translated to local language. Earlier, it only supported English language. New data forms and templates have been released for easier loading, reviewing, and updating cash forecasting historical opening balances. So there's quite a few things in cash forecasting. Coming to EPCM, or Enterprise Profitability and Cost Management, some exciting news. EPCM now supports IPM Insights. Some more exciting news. Task Manager support has been introduced. This means that within Planning or FCC Task Manager, we can execute EPM activities as supported by Task Manager pre-built integration tasks. In line with Task Manager support, equivalent EPM automate commands have been released. With regards to orchestration, there are few updates to existing EPM automate commands and equivalent REST API commands. For calculations, fee out of box calculations have been enhanced to allow more flexibility in allocation method. Lastly, reporting, couple of enhancements to enable focus statistics with regards to calculation processing time. If you can go to next slide, I'll hand it over to Debbie from here.
Thanks, Yogesh. As you can see, I guess a couple of those platform extensions happening across EPCM, which is exciting. That particular process getting the benefit of all of the investment in the platform. So I'm going to move in just to, I guess, what I'd call more the financial reporting or external reporting side of the house with financial consolidation and close, account recs, and reporting. Just focusing on what's happening over the last 6 months. I've already mentioned that narrative reporting with Gen AI is now up and running. There was a great Customer Connect session recently that also goes into the new Zoom function where you can actually generate narrative at different levels of the hierarchy based on those insights. Just on the next slide, I'll just quickly show you, I guess, how easy it is to opt into this particular process. So it's a tick box, not very technical. It's one of those risk-free opt-in processes. You don't have to use what Gen AI tells you. It is a starting point. So I just really recommend, give it a go, give it a try. It will continue to improve over time. The next update is also in relation to narrative reporting. If you can just go to the next slide, thanks, Rick. Is in SmartView. So you can now use a toggle, a highlight all SmartView within SmartView options to actually highlight all of your variables. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, some of the beauty of from an automation point of view for your reporting in narrative is to use what we call variables to update from the data some of your narrative. So different to Gen AI, it's actually using your data to say, for example, that repeatable comment that you would use report in, report out to say, net revenues were X amount of dollars higher or lower than the planned revenue of X amount of dollars with, sometimes calculations, percentages. You can create variables to basically update that in your reports, but now the ability within SmartView to highlight those so you can see where the data is coming from within each of the docklets. There's also a couple of SmartView extensions too, just to watch out for. And I think that's one of the things with our clients. We're always, making sure you're on the latest version of SmartView and with narrative with the SmartView extensions. So look out for those as they come through the updates as well. From a I guess, ability now for users to be able to run bursting definitions. So bursting, sending out reports that you're happy with out to, say, cost center managers from a button. There's now a card within narrative called jobs. The job console will allow you to set up those definitions. So just on the next slide, I'm just pointing out there that also with what Yogesh was talking about with some of those granular roles, the new report administrator can now have access to that console. I guess in the past, as we know, EPM had, I guess, very rigid roles, and a lot of the feedback I'm sure Oracle has had is that, the service administrator needs to do functions that should be in the hands of the business, and you just don't want to risk, over supplying access or roles to business users where they don't need the full set, but also letting them do the job that they need. So as you can see on the next click, pretty easy, even, again, not technical. We try to, encourage users that narrative reporting is not a technical tool. You can schedule your jobs, and on the next screen, Rick, you'll see that it, basically almost like setting up a calendar invite of how often you want to do these particular reports and whether it's on a recurring basis. So nice and simple new jobs console in narrative. Next is this one is can be a little confusing when we talk about reports in the EPM platform. And maybe it's just me, but we talk about narrative reporting, which is a business process. We talk about EPM reports, Yogesh mentioned financial reports before. So, we do try and make sure when we work with customers that they understand reports really deeply so that they know where to report from. There is a new type of reports called EPM Cloud System Reports, so available in narrative and in planning. And what that is doing is pretty exciting. It's actually tapping into the relational system data. And by that, I mean anything that you've created in supplemental data, enterprise journals, task manager is what it's available for at the moment. The exciting part of that is now that the foundation's there, that Oracle will have the ability to extend that into account recs, data management, and consolidation. So for anyone working with mismatch reports, etc., where there's a bit more of a transactional basis, I think there's some good things to come in the future. Just on the next screen, Rick, we can see that the benefit of that is that more transactional line item detail, but with the glossy formatting and automation from what we expect from EPM reports, automated and governed. So you're not extracting to Excel, doing all the work, and maybe missing some data along the way. So that's a good one to look out for. Also in the narrative reporting, or finally in the reporting stack, and this is a 2405, so available now in your test environments, is access to more samples. So sample content is there for you. You'll find it in your libraries. It actually shows you with detail, with some data, some samples of all of these features. So on the next screen, just some of the, there has been a lot of investment in narrative over the last 6 months. Shared variables, I haven't actually talked about. The Gen AI commentary and Zoom features, you can actually kind of self-serve through accessing the samples within the tool. So lots to look out for. I'll now move on to account reconciliation. So as I said, kind of sticking to more of the financial reporting side of the house. Again, a lot of investment over the last 6 months. So I'll just go through these fairly quickly. A lot of them are related to the transaction matching side of the house, a few in reconciliation compliance. So this is a very simple improvement, but I think it'll give people a lot of joy. This is one, Rick, where if you click to the next screen, it's like, can you spot the difference? Pretend you're in the optometrist. You can see, there we go, 19 rows, 33 rows, before or after. Now, if I asked you which one's better, if your eyes are like mine, you'd probably say the first one, but it does give you that opportunity on a bigger screen to have more real estate with those unmatched transactions. But as you can see on the next page, you've also got a few other options of how you want to look at that data. You can actually see that either vertical or horizontal. And in this case, I've actually extended the row height with the ability to do that on a custom basis as well. So you're not kind of stuck with what is out of the box there. A simple change, but that usability is increasing. Also in transaction search, the top little picture there shows the new columns, which are last action, last updated by, and last date updated on. So we all know the audit functionality of these EPM processes is really strong. You can extract that data, but this is actually putting it on the same screen. And another change that seems small, but it could be quite large. If you've set up an auto match, but you don't want it to stay auto matched and you want to undo it, in the past you've had to actually rerun the import. Now you've got a delete by job action button, which is really handy. The final improvement on the transaction search is the ability now within a suggested match to confirm or discard the match from in screen. So you don't need to jump out, do the discard and come back. So transaction searching getting a lot easier in our transaction matching processes. This is a bit more behind the scenes with the order of the rules that are running your transaction matching. So they always ran in an order, or always they do run in an order, but you couldn't actually see the numbers 1 to 10, for example. You now can see the numbers. You can move the match order around to suit your business process, and particularly where you've maybe got inactive rules as well, you can push those to the bottom. You can also filter by active and inactive. So another simple change, but can make things a lot easier to follow. In the data integration space, there is a new button. This is back to our reconciliation compliance clients. You can see the information there from a rec point of view, but if you go to the drill to integration button, and if you click Rick, what it's doing is it's jumping back to that data management layer where you can actually see some more detail on the information that you have imported or integrated in through the data management layer. So one to look out for as well. And finally, number 5, now this is 2405 as well, so available since the weekend just passed for those listening to us today in April. So 2504, you're now able to transaction match with, I guess, partial data. So if you've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a part of a string of text, and you're trying to match it with something that has that particular string in it, but it's larger, we've certainly absolutely configured rules to do that. It's a very simple rule process, but now you can actually do it without writing a specific rule with the matches with contains operator process. So that's one to have a bit of a play with in test. Finally, last but not least, for our financial consolidation and close clients, I know you'll be close to this. For those looking at FCC, continually improving in this space, enhanced org by period. What does that mean? That just simply means for restructures, you can go back in time and more easily adopt the restructure within the entity hierarchy. It's done so by separating the approval process and the ownership process, and it eliminates the need to reconsolidate for the whole of the prior periods when you have a restructure. I can tell you it's been a game changer for some of our implementations who are very, structures moving quite a lot. So EOBP, definitely one to get across. On the next screen, there are some steps to enable this. So certainly reach out if you're enabling it for the first time to help you through. But if you follow the process, it will open up that ability to manage your restructures a lot easier. And if we just keep going, Rick, could talk about FCC all day, really. But just finally, a couple of other small changes. So within the intercompany out-of-the-box report, just a bit of an improvement there with the ability to display accounts in rows, and that's a tick box, select box. But I think something even more powerful is that you can now use the year-to-date data input data source on forms. So for those who have adopted FCC and have to move to, train the business or retrain the business, who are used to year-to-date balances but now have to move to a movement calculation, this gives you the option, either or, to have those on input forms. So if you're, if your team are used to using a year-to-date input on some schedules, that ability is now out of the box. And I think that is it for what's new. There's obviously a lot more that that Oracle have put out over the last 6 months, but that's a bit of a taster from an application and a process point of view of what to look out for. And now let's see some of the work in action, Rick. So over to you.
Yeah, no problem. So, and keeping good time as well. So yeah, lots of new things that are coming. I guess I was going to focus on some of the, more major things in terms of the planning business process. So just I guess a bit of a reminder. I'm going to focus on 2 new application types that are in the enterprise subscription. So you'll see here, this is just a comparison between the two, as sort of mentioned earlier, that there are differences between the two. So the 2 components I'm going to go through in terms of sales planning and strategic workforce planning, you do need the enterprise subscription. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute as well. But this is just a bit of a recap. So you can see that there are things that are in enterprise that are not in standard, and really that's just a choice from a customer requirement perspective. But the good thing is underpinning it all, the platform, etc., they are the same across those subscriptions. So the first one I'm going to go through, so the idea is just to go through one slide, and then I'm going to go give you a bit of a demo, is around sales planning. So you all probably know that in planning, you can choose to use the Oracle out-of-the-box modules. So workforce, finance, projects are the sort of main ones. What Oracle's done is add to that and included a sales planning module. So very much looks at things like quotas, sales team, and how an overarching quota is pushed down to them. As I mentioned, it needs the EPM Enterprise subscription, and you actually need a spare application. So you might have your budgeting and forecast application, but you need a spare one in order to run this sales application. And when you deploy it, you choose that it's the sales application. Similar to how you deploy a sort of workforce finance projects application. And basically, what Oracle's doing with these modules is then bringing in some of the I guess the new features that exist in the platform now. So some of them are old and been there forever, which is like top down versus bottom up. But things like predictive planning, IPM, some of the dashboards, they all look really good. So I'm actually going to flick out of here, come over to my browser. Just checking, Yogesh or Debbie, that you can see.
Yeah, although Rick, you look a little bit different there in your profile pic, so well done.
Yes, yeah.
That
I'd
looks
like
good.
to take on a different persona when it comes to a demo. So as you can see up the top here, it's got sales plan as their application name. There's a navigation flow. I'm going to focus on this quota part, and I'll come out and show you some of the IPM. So there's a lot of content in here. I mean, a demo of this full demo could take probably a number of hours. I'm going to try and do it in about 5 minutes. So just to give you a bit of a snapshot. So as we know, dashboards, dashboard 2.0, this application is using that. So things like geomaps, bubble charts, waterfalls, those sort of things, where it looks really good. So giving us a bit of a snapshot of what does our sales target look like. You can see that it's got a with most organization, there's always a bit of an uplift when it comes to sales. So looking at last year's, adding 10% to give us our new quota for the year ahead. So I'm going to work through that in a minute. One of the pretty cool things, I guess, around sales is predictive planning does work quite nicely if you've got reasonable historical data. So just to show you, so this is looking down at a sort of sales person area. We've got historical information going back for a few years, and what that helps us do is predict the future. So if we clicked on Peter, if we clicked on James, you'll see they're differing historical data, and what that does is lead to that predictive capability. So we can actually take that information and paste that into a form, and effectively that will give us a predictive set of data. It'll just take a second to paste. You can choose whether you do it only for a selected member, but basically what that's done is create a forecast based on our historical information. So that can be one scenario that we're looking at versus others that might be a top-down push or even a bottom-up build of that particular information.
It's looking good though, as you said, Rick, using the the overall platform with across these tools, and that consistency makes it nice and easy for users.
Yeah, and what it does is sort of give the brings those tools to life, because sometimes customers are going, well, we see these new things, but how do we actually use them? So it's a good way to sort of visualize how they can be used. So we saw on that first dashboard we have last year's numbers. We've got a growth factor here. So at the moment it's sitting at 15%, or 10%, sorry. We could sort of up that to 15. We're going to be quite ambitious. And basically that will create a new quota. So our sort of plan quota goes up. There's, and many of you might have this in your application, where in your planning application, where you can right click, you can basically go and create some what if scenarios. So in this case, we're doing worst case, a conservative case, a best case, based on a sort of percentage uplift from the base. So effectively what that do is create some different versions. You'll see that we now have a bit of a view of, well, what do those targets look like if we were doing different things were happening in the market. So pretty easy to create those. We come along to the next tab. That 15% uplift that I guess it's been pushed down, and you can see that appearing in here down to a product level. So different style of planning, rather than building it up from the nuts and bolts of the lowest level. It's going the other way from the top down. So in this case, we can then start to go and say, well, actually, we servers and laptops, we're going to leave that at 15%, but we think, from a software perspective, we see more opportunity, and we can actually then override that. That'll give different targets for those particular areas. So you get that flexibility. If we went back to the beginning and changed that overarching percent, that would actually flush through, and we would need to then readjust those sort of more individual targets. Capability in here to, I guess, take that number, then adjust it. So we might want to just add a number. It might be moving targets from one person to another. So those sort of checks and balances are there. And then, the seasonality. So the values we were looking at before were all annual values. So taking those annual values and then spreading them down. And, many of us already do that. So using seasonality, in this case, we're actually just phasing it based on some percentages. So there's quite a bit in here. I did want to just quickly touch on IPM. So we talked a bit about that in terms of the enhancements over time that have come. Just to give you an example of how it can be used. So IPM or Insights has different scenarios that it looks at. So whether it's an anomaly in information, or whether it's looking at there's a bias in how someone's forecasting in comparison to the actual. So if I just show you those two examples. So the system itself is going and looking through the numbers and looking for these anomalies. So it's obviously easy to see on a chart that for some reason our actuals in that particular month are quite a bit higher than sort of the average. So that might be something to go and investigate. That's a sort of common use case. Or another one is the bias around forecasting. So in this case, the way the actuals have been coming through are different to forecasts. So is it something that maybe this area is not forecasting accurately enough? We all know that we can do this through SmartView and through quite a bit of analysis, but what this does is make our lives easier in order to go and find those particular issues, especially in a large data set. Okay, I went through that really quickly. I'm going to move to the workforce part, so strategic workforce planning, versus a lot of you who have planning are doing the financial planning of people and positions, so salaries, FTEs, those sort of things. This is a different view on workforce planning. So this is more around skills and demographics and those sort of aspects. Pretty heavily reliant on having some good data in a HCM type system. Once again, so strategic workforce planning has been around for quite some time. it was only really available to customers that had Oracle HCM. But what Oracle has done now is pull it out of there and make it available as a module in EPM planning, which I think is a good idea, because the reality is customers have a range of HCM systems, so it does make it more available now. It does need another instance of planning, so similar to the sales forecasting. So you can build on that compensation planning part with it, but the reality is you need a spare application in order to deploy it. So I'm going to go back to my browser. Over here, everything works. So I'm in a different application now called HCM Strategic Workforce Planning, and I'm basically going to go through this part. So there are some I guess charts. I'm actually going to start in this skills assessment area. So like we saw in the sales area, some interesting charting that's being used, and I guess this is the key difference this time, is it's now looking at the organization's workforce. What skills do they have, but where do we want to get to? And so in this case, our current year is FY25. We're looking at this sort of HR service desk area, and our last year of our strategic plan is FY29. So in FY29, we've said where we want to get to. So the different lines we have here, so there's a green line and a blue line, if your eyes are any good. So there's obviously for FY29, there's some improvements that are needed based on where the workforce currently sits. And it comes down to an organisation saying, well, what skills do we actually need to take us forward? Obviously, things change, might need to become more technical, whatever those things are. And what it does is give a target of, well, where do we find those skills, have a strategy to go to close that gap, I guess. And that's what this spider chart here is really showing us, is we have some gaps in initiative in this particular area, innovative thinking, etc. So they would be a focus of say recruitment, and also educating our workforce to get to that point. So underpinning all this is a cube with different sets of data. So just I guess a bit of a different view of that information. If we come, obviously it's just data that underpins it. So in this case, we've got a role. In a lot of cases, we have a person attached to them, and then there's an assessment of what are their skills like. And typically these things would be in a HCM system and can be integrated to give us, well, what is our current position? And then I guess the strategic thinking or planning is around, well, where do we actually want those skills to be? And this underlying information is what is feeding those particular charts. So if we were to look at one particular person, you'll see in here that there's a whole different range of skills that this particular organization has said that they want, but only some that are applicable to this particular job. So it's a case of filling those out. So I guess that's one key part of strategic workforce planning. The other part is around demographics. So and we have over time seen some of these elements come into, I guess, that more financial planning of the workforce, so more from a reporting, but this probably takes it a little bit to the next level of, because a lot of the time it's not relevant to the financial side, but it does give you a good set of data from a reporting perspective. So things like age, gender, education level, for example, and then looking at different skill sets. So once again, that information, if you think about it in terms of a cube of data, is a series of measures, and these other things are our dimensions that basically explain that data. So in this case, looking at things like the gender, age, if we look at all the information. So these are just literally choosing from a smart list. I do question this application as to why things might be changing over time, whereas it being just sort of set. Obviously, age changes. So you can if you're looking over 5 years, you would obviously start to change some of those age brackets. Now there is some other capability in here, which I'll really briefly touch on, which is around demand and supply. So it's looking at, well, what are the key drivers of our business? Therefore, what is our demand in terms of people? So in this case, it's like a help desk. So how many calls will they take? What is the calculation behind determining, well, our demand is we need 100 people, and then that gets compared to supply. So it's just a different way of looking at, I guess, our workforce information. So looking at different roles, what is the sort of key driver of that particular person? Are they in a management role, or are they one that's actually taking calls? And then effectively using some inputs in order to generate a demand profile. What that then gets compared to is the supply, which is probably more akin to what we're all used to, which is, well, how many people do we have? But it does bring in things like retirement age. So over time, people will leave the workforce. So what does that look like? Just flicking through a few of these screens to sort of give you a bit of an idea of how that's planned for. So attrition probably amongst younger people is higher than other age groups. And ultimately what that does is work towards a supply in terms of how many people we've got. Are people retiring, or they're turning over, to give us ultimately a position on where do we have gaps. So there are big gaps in this particular example. So we have a supply, we have a demand. What is the difference there? And obviously you can build up your own logic, own drivers that would be specific to each organization. But yeah, I guess we thought would be quite interesting just to show this. Not many people have seen it. It's a different way of using, and I guess just getting some more value out of your investment in EPM. And so they're two ways that are different applications. And we're trying to use these webinars to educate you on what else is out there. And then by the time the next one comes around, there'll be something else, I'm sure. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I think just harping back to the sales planning, I'm sure there's a lot of companies who export at the moment who would kill for the ability to sort of run some stats over the current economic conditions on an hour by hour basis. So yeah, don't underestimate the power of having that in your back pocket when things change seemingly overnight, if we're keeping up with the news of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Rick. Back to Yogesh for SmartView.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, SmartView, as you might be aware, SmartView version 2500 was released in. Yeah, so as you might be aware that SmartView version 2500 was released a couple of months back. It's available for download on Oracle portal, so feel free to give it a go if not already. And earlier we talked about support for Google Sheets in the platform updates, which is a major addition. Another significant and much needed addition is IPM Insights, which is now supported in SmartView. There's quite a few minor announcements, but conscious of time, I'll just go through one. System now supports multiple insertion of same report in a single workbook, each with a different point of view. Now, this is quite handy. It's recently added to the function, and this facilitates comparative analysis with various point of view across various point of views and dimensions. So you can compare side by side in different worksheets. If you can go to next slide. Yeah, I'll hand it back to Debbie if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, so Basically, I mean, there's lots of tips and tricks that we come across, but often will revert back to the Oracle documentation. And for those who jump into the release notes, you will have seen a sort of a major change. I'm going to say circa September, October last year, where Oracle kind of revamped their homepage and their readiness center. It's made it a bit more user friendly, more readable to find what's happening, and also searchable. So have a look. We do on our monthly update send a link to the release notes, and it's just, as you'll see, you can, I guess, navigate a lot easier to find what it is you're looking for, because not everything's going to be relevant based on your setup. What's really also key, and something on the next slide, Rick, that we encourage when we undertake new deployments, we often, we've tried very hard not to do training manuals that'll sit on the shelf and require someone to update sort of release after release. So as you can see, like all of the new functionality we've talked about over the last 6 months, to put that into your system, test it, put it out there, and also update user notes and guides, it becomes quite a burden and an overhead. And the good news is Oracle, thanks to your licensing, it gives it to you for free. So lots of videos, lots of tutorials, there's training material as well. So if you haven't had a look for a little while, jump in and have a run through. Certainly onboarding new employees, it becomes a lot easier if you can move them to an actual video that's got the latest and greatest, and not back from when you actually did the implementation. So just wanted to share that as a bit of a reminder. And now into what's coming. So some roadmap excitement. I mean, I can keep just talking through what I can see. I think one of the Oh, sorry, Rick, that was you.
No, you go.
Off you go.
Happy.
Hate to steal your thunder. You know me with narrative reporting. It's one of my faves.
Yes.
One of the call outs with a lot of these roadmaps is what you see on the R&D underway. So Oracle will often release a roadmap in some of their customer connect sessions, so look out for them. You can see that there's already the R&D that was underway 3 months ago has actually been released, and you'll see that when Rick goes through the rest of what's coming. I guess what I'm get a bit excited about in the background from an AI perspective, all the talk, we've moved from sort of traditional AI that we talk about with predictive planning, for example, into generative AI, hard to say. All the speak now in the AI world is around agents. So coming soon, or looking forward, I should say, with a disclaimer there that they don't put a date on it, but looking forward, the data exploration analyst and a dynamic visualization assistant sounds pretty cool to look out for in the future. And obviously highlighted there is something that we've encouraged as well, which is an integration of narrative reporting to the data and information in Oracle Analytics Cloud. So you can source data for narrative from Oaks, but having an integration point is going to be an improvement in that space. So we'll be bringing that to you when it happens. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, that one sounds very exciting. Just, different style of reporting, and a lot of customers do have Oak, so it will be quite an interesting one.
I was going to hand to Rick, but you probably want me to talk about it's account reconciliation. You can't take that away from me. Always a nerd when it comes to account recs, and don't worry, I've done them all the hard way. So ARC's definitely a game changer to look out for, and this is for our reconciliation compliance clients. I've talked a lot about transaction matching and what's happened, but something called balance attributes. So for those who know about attributes, basically it's just additional information that there is now an ability, sorry, not now, but coming soon. They've said circa mid-2025. We're pretty close to that. To load additional information when you load balances, and this is really key to, I guess, understanding maybe a balance hasn't changed, but there's been transactions within the month, so it can highlight sort of movements. But the potential for future use of that information is what's exciting. So I guess for those who are using ARCs, I would suggest that you watch the 1 hour customer connect session that I've included there. It was released a week or so ago. It also covers a few other things with a roadmap and the partial text matching as well. So that's one to come back and show you as well.
Yeah, so obviously, continuing that theme of things that are happening, there's, FCC, there's lots going on in there. Some of the implementations we've got going on at the moment are leading to some of these enhancements as well, which is great. It's great to see Oracle responding to customers. So things like multi-cubes, I guess consolidation, reconsolidating historical data, which is typically a no-no, but sometimes there is a need for those things. And there's obviously a stream of things that are coming that they're looking at going forward. So things like consoles on shared parents. So, they're the highlighted ones are probably the ones where we're most interested in, that we see what customers are looking for. And obviously there's a customer connect session coming up around looking at how Gen AI and machine learning, etc., will come into FCC. At the moment, there's nothing really there. It's more in that narrative layer. So it'd be interesting to see what they're doing. Obviously, they're working on IPM at the moment. So that will be quite interesting.
Yeah. Watch out for that on the 18th. There is one question that I will ask while we're on here, and we'll get back to the other questions. But this one's for you, Rick. How much data do I need for insights to work with planning?
So when you're using predictive planning, typically you use the two in tandem. So we find that at least 2 years of historical data, but IPM will work with your actuals and your forecast data. Like it'll work with your current year data set. It's only when you want to bring in the sort of auto prediction that you need a longer set of historical data. And we typically see 2 years is about the minimum. If you've got longer, it's better. You get a better prediction going forward.
Thanks, Rick. Fantastic. We are bang on time. So I guess on the next slide, we will send out the slides to you. You'll get a copy of the recording, so you can laugh at us, or me mostly, talking very quickly if you're skipping through it. Thanks to everyone who's joined and registered, and we look forward to seeing you in another 6 months' time. Reach out in the meantime.